Sam was a romantic, and he believed in freedom.
Sam uses chickens a lot.
Only Peckinpah could do that.
As I walked into the bar, he just said, "David Warner," he said, "welcome to the club."
It was him, you know, that was him.
And I looked at this man, and I thought, God, I really like him.
You'd have to lean in real close to hear what he was saying. He did that on purpose.
He was human after all, that bastard.
He was a guy who was a genius for 3 hours a day, at least 3 hours a day, sometimes more, depending on how much he was drinking.
Well, you know you got a problem. You also know you're on a picture with Peckinpah when, in my case, for breakfast, I was served my breakfast the first day and I had maggots in it. Now, when that happens, you know you're on a Peckinpah picture because he doesn't care a fig about where you are or what you do as long as you're there. We're always out and out of the way places. You're always going to jail. The fights on Major Dundee, the fight started at 11 o'clock at night. On the Wild Bunch, they started at 11 o'clock every Saturday.
He was drinking, and he was firing shots randomly into the walls at times that were a hazard to health of some of my friends. I remember being called up in the middle of the night by either Donnie Fritz or Harry Dean Stanton. They were both over there when I got there, and they said Sam had a pistol and he had taken a shot near them. And he was running a high fever at the time, and I went over and took the gun away from him. I said, "Give it to me, Sam," and he acted like a little kid who had been scolded, and handed me the pistol. But it was a strange shoot looking back.
He wanted to do a scene in that first picture that I did with him, war notes and all of them in it. And it's like he called here's a young director and telling, guys from the studio, "Go get the goddamn chickens." And I said, and that's when I was first struck by, my God, he's a director and he's willing to get in the fire and everything else, but telling the studio what to do and everything. And sure enough, they got the chickens out, and I wondered what it was all about, that fight over chickens. And it's like I was in wonderment about him bucking the studio and telling him, "You bring the goddamn chickens out. I told you to have them out here." And he said, "Well, Sam, so-and-so, it cost $150. And he said, "Get the fucking chickens." And I saw that going, and they said, "All right." And they brought the chickens out, and they had me when I was shot and leaning over something like this. This was when Mariette Hartley and Randolph Scott and Joe McRae were coming back to the house, and they had already killed me, and I was over kind of a thing, and suddenly I realized, and when the scene was shooting, here was chicken, all to hear is me blood dripping from my face, and I began to realize, I didn't know that was going to happen. He let loose the chicken with scratch grain, and they were packed all around. I said, "Well, I'll be damned." And it brought the scene alive. When Mornos was shooting down into the chickens, got frustrated because he couldn't get to us, and the chickens wandering out on that became part of the scene that he made. And he had the chickens literally, for some reason, however, he had them jumping up, and Like in another picture that I did with him, I think about, he had the chickens all in, the heads all buried. I don't know whether you remember that, and he's using the chickens again, you know, with their heads off, being shot off, you know, and they were sitting there aiming at them and shooting the chickens' heads off. I said, God damn, he really was doing, they were jerking their heads off, you know. But anyway, Sam used the chickens a lot.
I remember we rode off into the sunset one night, and he says, go ahead, go out there, the cameraman will go with you. Well, what about you? No, I'll trust you, go ahead. So we'll ride out into the sunset, the four of us, you know? Then we just went. He leaves us alone because he liked to improvise as he went along. He liked to see what you could bring out, what you could bring out of yourself as to what happened in the picture, you know? So it was a wonderful thing all the way through, for me anyway. I know there was a lot of people that called him every name in the book because, you know, he's this, he's that. But the only thing that bothered me about Sam Peckinpah was that he always wore dark glasses. And I like to look into a man's eyes when I speak to him, you know, because there's a rapport between people. But if you have to look and see what he's got in his eyes, and you can't see it because there's dark glasses, you say to yourself, what's going on in his mind? What's going on? What does he mean? What does he want? What can I do for him? So one thing leads to another, and that's why most of it, you know, bam, comes out. And so one day, we were doing a scene by the campfire where he said, well, we're going to go maybe rob a bank, and then, you know, they're going to be there. And, oh, he said, I know it. They'll be waiting for us. And he said, I wouldn't have it any other way. I turned to him and I said, I wouldn't have it any other way either. And I rolled over, away from the camera, just rolled over. And that was the end of the scene. And the camera kept turning and turning and turning. I said, what happened? Maybe he fell asleep, maybe, you know. And suddenly I heard, cut, like he was crying. And I waited until that cut came, and then I looked over, and he had tears running down his face. I said, that son of a bitch. You know, he was human after all. That bastard. So I knew we had him. We had him good, you know. But he was a wonderful guy. To me, he was everything that I ever wanted in a director, you know.
It's probably my agent. Let me get these spider webs off of it. Hello? Yeah? I'm here. How you doing, LQ?
Is this too much noise? Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Yes, it is. I thought it sounded pretty good. Kind of gives it a homey effect. Okay, go ahead on with your mess.
It was like in a Wild Bunch, you know, when we were shooting a scene with a lady, and she was a lady, that teacher was hired there, you know, to play that. So I would say, sing, and she said, no, I won't. And I'd say, and anyway, I'd go up to her and I said, sing. No, I won't. Well, anyway, she said, trash, filthy trash. And Sam come over to me and said, look, she's not giving anything. So next time you go up to her, don't say anything, but stick your tongue in her ear. And of course, you know, hey, it was my first picture, sort of. So she was saying, trash, filthy trash. And I said, oh, hush now. And I got up next to her and I went, ah! Cut, print, good. And that's how you got that part. I mean, that's how you got the reaction out of her, and that's what he wanted. So it worked great, you know. He'd never tell, if an actor had his thing and it was right, he liked that. But sometimes, you know, I never heard him put down an actor or make an actor feel so uncomfortable, which he did anyway with him, because he mama like this. He talked worse than I did. Huh? Yeah, that's how I know that. So you'd have to lean in real close to hear what he was saying. He did that on purpose because he wanted you to pay attention.
He wanted to do a picture, and I had my company. I'd already done one picture, and I was going to do another. And as only Sam could do, we get ready to do it. We're going to do the dumb thing, and I get ready to fund the project. Well, I got the money in the bank. I went to withdraw it, and all of a sudden I don't have any money. My attorney had stolen the money that I had put aside to do the picture. Well, I wasn't a real happy camper, especially when I had to tell Sam, and I finally told Sam, and now he's furious. It's my money that my attorney has stolen, and Sam is going to sue me because I don't have the money to put up. Only Peckinpah could do that.
I got a phone call from Sidney Lumet, with whom I'd just finished working. And he said, now listen, you're not going to have heard of this man, but I've seen one reel of his latest picture. His name's Sam Peckinpah, and I urge you, he's going to call you, because I've given him your telephone number. He's going to call you, and I urge you to work with him. He's very exciting. I have to assume that the reel he'd seen was something from the Wild Bunch. So I got a call about an hour later from Sam Peckinpah, introducing himself in a very quiet, low voice. He said, can I send you a script? I said, of course. And the script arrived. It's a wonderful part. And Jason Robards, as you know, was in it. And that was very exciting. But a friend of mine, I mentioned, have you heard, a film buff, have you heard of Sam Peckinpah? He said, Sam Peckinpah, fantastic. Ride the High Country. Guns in the Afternoon, it's called over here. So they arranged a screening of Ride the High Country for me. And I looked at it, and I could just see that this director had something really very special. You know, the way that he just treated stuff totally different from anything else. An intelligent film and an intelligent filmmaker. So that really sealed the idea of going to America for the first time to work in the Western was, or a so-called Western, was exciting enough. But then when I saw the work, I decided I really had to do it. The day before I was due to fly to get to the desert, and never having been to America before, I suddenly freaked out in my mind about flying. I'd never enjoyed flying, even just little things to Europe. And so I said to my agent, no, look, I'm sorry, I just can't fly. He said, you've lost the job, you know that. You've lost a great opportunity. I said, I know, I'm sorry, I just can't. He said, okay, I'll tell them. So I was prepared not to be doing the Ballad of Cable Hogue, but within 24 hours, my agent here in London called me and said, okay, this is the plan. You're going to catch a train from Victoria Station. You're going to go down to Paris. You're going to change trains at Paris. You're going to go down to Barcelona in Spain. You're going to spend the night in Barcelona. You're going to catch a boat. It's going to take 2 weeks because it stops off at some islands across the Atlantic. You'll end up in New York in 2 weeks' time. You'll stay overnight in New York, you'll go to Chicago, you'll stay overnight in Chicago, and you'll then catch the Super Chief from Chicago all the way over to the West Coast. Then you'll be driven to Las Vegas, to Echo Bay Resort, which is just outside Las Vegas. It'll take about 3 weeks. I said, really? I said, well, okay, I'll do it. Of course. So it took 3 weeks there. I mean, Sam Peckinpah obviously wanted me, and also had the power to say to them, "We'll wait." So I got to this little resort where the base camp was, and I was shown to the bar immediately where Sam Peckinpah was waiting. He knew I'd arrived by then. And as I walked into the bar, he just said, "David Warner," he said, "welcome to the club." Now, I don't know quite what club that was, whether it was the non-flying club or whether it was the drinking club or whatever it was. But that was his first words. And I felt at home immediately. I mean, to wait for an actor that long in a big multi-million-dollar film was something, and made me feel part of something. And certainly it said a lot to me about the man, Sam Peckinpah, to go to those lengths.
I remember the first dailies that he was watching, and he was pretty intimidated by the whole Peckinpah legend, I think. And we were watching a daily of the scene where Slim Pickens was dying, and it came back printed too darkly, and Sam was so mad and so drunk that he went up and pissed on the screen. And I can still remember Bob Dylan's face just sort of turning slowly and looking at me like, what did you get me into? But then Bob came up with a wonderful song for that very scene, probably because of the screen being, I mean, the thing being shot too dark, because in the song, "Knocking on Heaven's Door," are the words, "It's getting dark, too dark to see. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door." And I love that song in the thing. I don't know whether Sam did or not.
I've been thinking about Sam a lot lately and thinking that my stories with Sam, even though I did Convoy afterwards, after the getaway, the really powerful Sam imprint had everything to do with the time that I fell in love with Steve and the time that we did the getaway and this sort of man's world that I suddenly entered. This prissy little New England college graduate, fashion industry survivor, whatever, who was suddenly, to my big surprise, a big movie star. And this was never for a second a kind of Hollywood experience for me. I guess there were agents around, I guess there were all the usual hangers-on, but the imprint of Steve McQueen and Sam Peckinpah and the stuntmen and the location and the kind of maleness of it all was so exciting. And it's never been duplicated.
The opening night of the Osterman weekend, I called him to see what he was going to do. Was he going to the theater? Was he having a party? Was he going to a party or what? None of those, none of the above. He wasn't doing anything. He was in his trailer up at the beach, and that was it. I said, how in the world are you gonna? No, Sam, aren't you? Let's go out for dinner then. No, no, no. Okay, I'll come up and see you. What can I bring you? And I saw him. I went there, and he didn't invite anybody, or none of this partying. The opening night of the movie. I didn't even ask why not or what. It was him, that was him. So that was the last time I saw him. Yeah.
Like a leader of a group storming the West, and fighting Indians, and staying alive and creating a world. That's what it was. It was like you were part of his. He was creating a world. That was, and he was true to it, to himself. And you have to be true to it if you're a real artist. Come hell or high water.
Sam Peckinpah was a friend of mine. I acted in 3 films for him. I directed second unit in 1. So I knew him pretty well. He was a man who was not altogether an easy man to know. He was a guy who was a genius for 3 hours a day, at least 3 hours a day, sometimes more, depending on how much he was drinking. He was a working alcoholic, as he called himself. But he was a wonderful director. I had more faith in him, I think, directing me than any director that I've had. Most directors don't direct you anyway. But his attention was so fine. He gave every scene and everybody in the scene the exact amount of tension and attention that was necessary in order to achieve what he wanted to see. He knew how to do that. He knew how to bring something out of an actor that even the actor didn't know was there. He chose interesting stories to tell. And he was a definite storyteller, something that we don't have today, many of. Today we have action films, not films with action. Sam was probably accused of too much violence. He was a man of nonviolence. He wanted to show violence the way it was in order to achieve nonviolence, to make it so repulsive that nobody wanted to see it. Today they glamorize violence, unfortunately.
What I miss most about Sam is the heart that he put into the movies, that he always wanted to make something good. He was always working to make a piece of art that would last and move your emotions. And I'm not sure that's always done today.
This is like the, you know, the Cowboys Oscar.